Welcome to the AV Experience, where we talk about everything home theater and AV. I'm Ryan, joined as always by Jonathan. I don't really have a funny remark to say, so we'll just jump right into it. How was your weekend?
It's
You went
really nice.
camping.
Yeah, this last week we went camping.
You couldn't sleep.
It's too hot, but we've solved that. Just
Now,
turn the air conditioner down.
did you, driving up and down a hill, was there any mayhem?
No mayhem.
No mayhem. Darn it.
I've now got the brake controller figured out, so the camper's not pushing the truck around. We're
So
good.
there was no like THX sound on repeat that just kept going?
As a fiery ball.
Got stuck and just kept going nonstop. Can you imagine if like Eclipse kept going and never stopped and just was playing on repeat over and over and over?
Megan would jump out on the highway.
She might. Good. Everything went well. I'm glad to hear that. I don't even remember what my week was like. Today's my son's birthday, so we've been doing that.
Mm-hmm.
Watched some movies. You watched a movie, though. I think most people have seen the movie that you watched. You watched the new Harry Potter, or not the new Harry Potter. Good Lord, the first Harry Potter.
That's right.
Okay, you watched that one. I watched The Tomorrow War.
I've seen that before.
I watched Better Man. I watched, what else did I watch? I watched quite a few. I watched The Creator. And I watched The Flash.
Which was your favorite of the four?
Probably The Flash. I didn't expect I would like that movie, but I did. And I think I enjoyed it because I anticipated it being a little bit cheesy when I was going into it. And it was. I mean, it's The Flash. That's what you expect going into that. But I liked the twist that they put on it. Not really a twist, but characters that showed up that you didn't expect. So I liked that part of it. That was super cool.
Cameos by other superheroes, or
I won't ruin it for people because I think it's better if you don't know it. But I really enjoyed that part. So that was, and it makes sense for the movie. I'll say that it all makes sense for how they tied everything together. So I enjoyed it. That was my favorite. The Creator, it was okay. I mean, it wasn't anything revolutionary. Better Man was fun. That was at the movie night for the Kansas City crew last night. And it was okay. I mean, it's made by the same guys, I think, that did Greatest Showman. And it's
Are the songs, are the scores as good, or is it?
I don't think they're as good. It's not as iconic. I don't think there's any demo-worthy scenes. I haven't watched it yet in my theater, so I haven't paid a ton of attention, but I enjoyed the movie. I thought it was a little long. It didn't need to be as long as it was. They lingered on some things and just kept going in circles at some points, but it did well. I had fun. I enjoyed it. I liked Kevin's theater. I liked his aesthetic as you come down the stairs to the like theater area with the snacks and stuff. I don't have that, so that was cool.
Lobby area, yeah.
The lobby area, yeah. And then his theater's a black hole. It's dark. So that was cool. I enjoyed that. Played around a little bit with my theater. I got not the waveforming, the near field stuff set up for you.
Yes, very good.
I did. So that's ready. I tried it on the Storm and the Trinov. And the Trinov waveforming does not like it. You can do it, but you can definitely tell the bass isn't as clean when you have it on. Like you can tell that having the 50 play more full range with all the other subs, you're impeding what waveforming is trying to do.
But do you have to rerun it from scratch, the waveforming, after you set it to full range?
So how Trinov works is whenever you make a change, it'll recalculate everything for you. So it'll go through and redo everything when you make
based on your one-time initial measurements.
Yeah, so it saves those measurements and then recalculates everything. So you may have to wait a minute for it to recalculate.
That's a cool format.
It is super cool. I do really appreciate that they do that. So I'm able to change things like how aggressive waveforming is, how dry or wet it makes the bass. What is it doing with pressurization? That's actually what they call it in the manual. I feel like
that's where that came from.
That's
wet bass? I thought Mark made that.
I think they stole it from,
or you made it up, or somebody
from our group. I don't know who. It was somebody. One of us made it up. but they call it wet and dry.
Huh.
So you're able to change that. You're able to change some limits. You're able to change where pressurization, where all the subs kick in for the lower frequencies. You're able to do a lot of way more than that. But that's some of the little things that you can do with waveforming. So I was playing with that a little bit. Um, and the Trinov just didn't like the near field because you can't introduce the infrasonics really in Storm or in Trinov with the room EQ at all, right? So with the Trinov, I'm having to introduce it later through a QSC QSys 110F. So the Trinov doesn't even know the 232s and the 50 exist at all. It doesn't know they're there. So I was changing these things after the fact in the QSys. And the QSys, how the 32s and the 50 are rolled in is the 21s, the kick subs, and the infras roll into each other, right? There's not a technical crossover, but they're rolling into each other for a crossover. And they do really well with that. So when you introduce the 50 playing full range, because it starts getting in the way of what waveforming is trying to do with the 21s. And you can tell, like, it was very easy to tell. When you do it with the Storm, how we integrated the infrasonics with the Storm is they're on zone 2. So the main calibration doesn't know that the infrasonics are there, but the Storm knows they're there. So we do the same thing, but they're on zone 2. Now, Art did not care as much about the infrasonic being there. So it is on, I can do it on both, but it definitely sounds better on the Storm. But I will say, I prefer it without it.
So I have a question, and you may have already addressed this, but
Yeah.
when you swapped out your amps, I think you might have, if I remember correctly, you might have found a polarity issue or fixed a polarity issue.
Mm-hmm.
Could that play into that, especially with the Trinoff, the initial save calibration, why it might not play nice now because the polarity has
No,
been
so
swapped?
it plays really well now when I don't have the 50 as a near field.
Full range.
Right. So the 50 being a near field, it's getting in the way of what waveforming's trying to do. Without the 50 being a near field, it's amazing. Like it
Mhm.
does really well. The Storm does really well too. So we fixed that. It was actually, I think it was introduced after the calibration. Like I rewired it and put some things in backwards like a dunce. So that wasn't there at the beginning. So we would have found that phase issue when we were doing the calibrations because we tested everything. We went through all of that. That wasn't an issue. The 50 is just getting in the way when I do that, when I run at full range of what waveforming is trying to do, unfortunately. It just sounds better on the Storm. And it's easier, frankly, to implement on the Storm because I don't have to get into the QSys and put in a different low pass and all that to change how things are working. So took a little bit to get it on the QSys, but Storm was literally just editing the pass filter and telling it, hey, don't roll off, just do full range.
Mhm.
And oh man, it is turned right now. It's turned way down.
Mhm.
It's like being assaulted.
Mhm.
And I was telling somebody, I don't remember who I was telling. Normally with a near field, right? It's part of your back.
Mhm.
The 50 is taller than you when you're sitting
Mhm.
down.
Sure.
So it's like somebody has a piece of plywood and it's just smashing you in the back. Instead of it just being part of your lower back, it's your whole body is just getting hit by
Yeah.
this wave as it comes through. And
I've
it's
only experienced that once in your room, and it was with that Imagine Dragons concert clip that you like
yeah.
to play, and I
Mhm.
was standing in the back of the room behind the couch, and it was incredible. Like, when that 50 was going full range, it felt like competition car audio type levels to
It's
me
not
when it
slow.
was turned on. Mm.
People always assume that, oh, it's a big driver, it's gonna be super slow. It's actually the opposite because the driver doesn't have to excurge. Like, it's hardly moving when it's
Yes.
putting out these frequencies, and it'll play, like, if you look at its frequency response, if you do a near field measurement, it's playing flat virtually up to 1,000 hertz. Like, it's ridiculous.
Hmm.
So, it's rolled off with the 21s where they roll off into the crossover, but it hammers you. It's a totally different near field experience because of how big it is.
Mhm.
And it's I think we talked a little bit about the 24s kind of being overwhelming when they're really close. Because it's further away, if I turn it down, it doesn't feel unnatural. Like it okay, it does feel unnatural. I haven't played John Wick or anything with it. I haven't played anything that's ridiculous yet, so we'll have to mess with it. But it's unlike anything else because it's enormous. Like it's literally like getting hit with a piece of plywood.
I mean, it's such a subtle addition to your theater when it's playing like 30 hertz and below. But when you had it on full range, it just like woke that thing a lot. It just came alive.
It did. You realize that, oh, there is a huge subwoofer there, and it's not just playing the little things. And now that I've got the calibrations more dialed in and we fixed some phase issues, there's some songs, like 2-channel songs, that I was playing, and I can't remember the name of this song, but there was a note where it was hitting and the whole couch was moving. From where the 50 hit this note, the whole couch would shudder as it got hit with this low frequency impact. And that wasn't happening before.
Sure.
But we'll have to mess with it some
and
more.
When you look back there, fellas, that driver's not even hardly visibly moving, and it's making that impact on your body. It's wild.
It does move on like the Imagine Dragons stuff. You can look back and it's kind of scary when you see how fast that thing's moving, because you could kick it and it doesn't move. Like it's really rigid. You think, oh, that's probably soft or something. No, you'd like break your foot kicking that thing. But so I had fun with that, messed around a little bit with that. I think we talked a little bit last time. I got everything on Shelly relays. So now the whole rack turns off and the whole rack can turn on with the rooms.
Yeah, that's
nice. Super nice. I got to integrate it in with Siri so we can just talk to it and it turns itself on and off. So it's easier for my family to do. Right now, I'm just using Sir Master's home theater web remote, which is great. So that's good. Don't really have anything else that's super exciting. Events that are coming up are Audio Advice. We get to go out there, and then Cedia is going to be here before we know it. Don't know of anything really getting announced at Cedia. Yeah, that's me. Did we have a movie for this week?
We didn't specify one.
Did you pick a movie for our get together?
Not yet, but I was thinking I have an idea of what I'm going to do, but we're not doing it until after next week because Sheldon can't. He's on vacation next week, like starting Tuesday, I think. So it'll have to be when he comes back.
That's fine.
I'm really thinking about doing Jurassic Park.
You should,
and then half and half, like the first half of the movie or second, it doesn't matter. One half of the movie on the QL3000, one half on NZ500, just to kind of show their perspective.
Yeah,
the way they show it.
Whatever you want to do, I think that'd be great.
That'd be fun. And then I'd also like to test the Apple TV 4K 2 version 2 versus Gen 3.
You must remember to not get the remote stuck.
That's only ever happened one time with you. It's never happened again.
God,
I don't know what that was about. That was terrifying.
Did you turn it up? I thought you were turning it up. I thought you were turning it up. I thought you were trying to be the bigger man. No, I thought you were.
Oh, man. And meanwhile, it was the loudest I've ever heard myself.
That was the loudest I've ever been in a home theater. And we sat there and suffered in silence together.
I thought you were wanting to see what my system was capable of.
Neither of us
had the remote.
Said anything.
Yeah, we both thought the other one had the remote, and it just was like going up to max volume, and
just kept going. Nothing broke.
No,
nothing broke.
It sounded super clean, but it was just unreasonably loud, painfully loud.
It was rather loud. And by rather,
it's
really loud.
You're looking at me like, what are you doing?
But it happened multiple times.
That night it did.
God, I'm always.
We wanted it to happen with Bob. Remember when Bob came over? We were kind of like bated breath, waiting for it to happen. It never happened with him.
It was happening with the storm, if I remember right. It was something to do with the storm and the Apple TV, and it just kept going. Oh gosh, I'll never forget that. My ears will never let me forget that. Oh, that was something.
Yeah.
Okay. So, Jurassic Park sounds great. So, not next week's movie, the following week. So, what do we want to watch together? Because that's not going to be for a couple weeks. So, what do we want to watch together? What do you want to do? Is there anything new that's out?
I don't know of anything. There's a lot of stuff in the theater right now, but I don't think it's hit disc yet.
No, nothing's hit disc yet. What do I have?
Some of the blockbuster stuff.
How about, do you like 28 Days Later?
I've never seen it.
Oh, it's a horror movie.
Is it strictly horror, or is it kind of like Like, I liked Walking Dead. I watched the first 5 seasons of it or something.
I think it's darker than Walking Dead. It's going to be more closer to one of the first episodes of Walking Dead, where the characters are getting introduced and he's got all the zombies around him in the tank and they're in that high-rise building and it's a lot darker. There's a lot darker tones in Walking Dead. I think it's going to be closer to that. I wouldn't call it like horror. It's not going to be Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Like, it's not scary to be scary. There is a story to it. So we could.
That's fine. I'll do that one.
Because I just got those. They went on sale for Kaleidescape, so I just got those. And I think there's a new one, 28 months or 28 years later coming out or something along those lines.
I did hear about that.
I was trying to get ready for that. Let's do that. 28 days later. We haven't really done horror, have we?
I just steer clear of it normally, but something like this I can tolerate.
What was the last scary one we did? That you had to keep.
We did Alien Romulus over at Sheldon's house.
Oh, that's right.
You were at that one.
I feel like there was another one though. Oh well, but let's do 28 days later. That sounds good. We'll do. That's the first one, chat. Right? That's the first one in that series. Then it's 28 weeks, and then there's another one coming. We'll see what they say. Anything else before we dive into questions? This one's just going to be about questions, ladies and gentlemen.
I have a little bit of an interesting experience with the Harry Potter movie. So at true to form, I swapped the projector out halfway in that one between the NZ500 and the QL3000. But it was watched.
That one was family.
I watched that one on 2 different nights because the kids had to go to bed about halfway through. So the next night I just switched it up over the other one. They didn't even know. I didn't tell them. I didn't even talk to them. I was curious if they would say anything, and they didn't. But we started the movie with the QL3000, the Harry Potter, and those are very dark movies, right? They're dark content, recorded at night, a lot of that kind of stuff. A good portion of the content. We were watching it in SDR on 1080p Blu-ray disc, like the physical disc, and I left the projector at 100% brightness with the QL3000 to start, and that's too bright. It's just too bright for that movie. Like the intro scene where Dumbledore is turning off the lights, the street lights, and he walks up and they hand off Harry Potter to the family that's going to guard him. The lights were so bright that it was almost like looking into a headlight on the screen, where you're kind of like having to do this.
Some of the tone mapping stuff is messed up on.
That's only an SDR in this case. We weren't doing HDR.
Oh, okay.
It was just too much. It's like 275.
You were watching SDR at 100% laser?
We started that way.
Oh my gosh.
It was just too bright.
No joke.
Because the scene is super dark.
Looking into the sun.
They're standing at I can't remember the name of the family that takes Harry Potter, but there's a porch light right here. Jonathan. And it was like brighter than any porch light you've ever seen in your life. Like way beyond.
Probably one of those guys that's like, all right, kids, there's an eclipse coming. Now look into it.
I mean, it really was like so bright. That porch light was so bright, it was ridiculous. So then at that point, I turned down the laser a little bit to like make it tolerable. We watched it the rest of the way through, halfway through, and then I switched to NZ500 the second night. And yeah, very, very different presentations, like super different presentations.
My wife just wouldn't watch movies with me. She'd just be like, "No, I'm not doing it. I'm not."
Pretty fun.
Special family. Megan, I don't know how you tolerate this one. You're a saint for doing this with him.
That's funny.
Oh. SDR. It's like a 400 nits on your Oh my god.
It's super bright. It was overwhelming. Even for someone who likes bright, it was overwhelming.
Okay, last thing. I'm imagining you watching it with your family, and they're all complaining about it being too bright, and they look at you, and you have sunglasses on, and you look at them and just go, "It's not too bright. I don't know what you're complaining about." And Jonathan's just sitting there with his aviators, watching the movie and his popcorn, SDR at 400 nits, just his skin is visibly tanning. Gosh, what a...
Yeah.
You're nuts.
It's fun.
It's something. It's something. Okay. So we'll do 28 days later. Okay. So
JTB suggested Overlord. We watched that, didn't we?
No, he's saying when we were talking about it in movies that you kept turning down, it was Overlord.
Oh, yeah. Well, we did watch that, though. We did watch it.
Yes. Yeah. Yes.
It was interesting. Little over the top whorish.
Yes. Yeah, it was. Some of the stuff was
There were some
unnecessary.
scenes that made me grimace because it was
Yeah.
pretty.
28 days there may be some of that. I mean, it's zombies, but you said yes.
Too late, huh?
Too late. Too late. All right. So let's jump into questions. If you guys have questions about anything, feel free to write them in a chat. They are first in, first out. So just know that if you write something, it's not going to get answered immediately, but we will get to it. We try and answer everything before we close up the stream. I'll just say at some point, probably, hey, we're not taking questions anymore, but we'll get to everything that's already been put into stream. So, first question, and I have no idea for this one. What do y'all think about the Paradigm Founders 100F for home theater?
I have to Google it. Founders 100F. $2,700. A tower, 5 drivers, 3-way floor standing ported enclosure.
What's their sensitivity? Probably like high 80s.
I haven't found that
low 90s
level of details yet. I'm looking. So scrolling down, here it is. Frequency response, they're saying plus or minus 2 dB from 42 hertz to 23,000 hertz. 3 7-inch ultra-high excursion drivers. The mid-range are 6-inch driver. What about the high-frequency driver? High-frequency drivers are 1-inch ceramic dome.
Ceramic
dome with ferrofluid dampening and cooling. Sensitivity is 93 dB in room, 90 dB anechoic.
Oh.
Suitable amplifier range is 15 to 350 watts. Maximum input power is 250 watts. It's a little odd they designated that way.
I think they're just saying it that way so that if you have a amp that gets in distortion at peak output, that you're not doing that.
It should have the bass drivers and the mid-range drivers to do reference capable. I don't know enough about that particular high-frequency tweeter to know the 1-inch ceramic dome, whether it's going to be capable of reference.
It also depends on how far you are away from the speaker, where the reference seating position is. I think if you're buying a new speaker, I would choose something else if you're trying to do, depending on what you're trying to do. Like if you're trying to go for reference level, huge output, dynamic range, pick something else. If you're trying to go for, or you already have them, and you're trying to go music or something along with that, they may be a good choice. Aaron did a review.
Aaron doesn't test reference, unfortunately.
No, but it can be pretty. You can look at his compression testing, the 2034 stuff, and look at what they're doing. Even though he doesn't go to reference, he goes to 102. And virtually,
yeah, but it's 102 at close mic, which is just not. It's not relevant for seating.
Yeah, but my point is that if it's compressing there, it's
sure. I would hope it wouldn't be compressing there. It's definitely off the list for me. I don't immediately say don't on this one because it has enough drivers to potentially be capable. It all comes down to that tweeter for me.
And when you say don't or potentially, you aren't saying
there's some that people ask about, and I'm just immediately like, nah, that won't do reference.
It depends on the use case. We're not saying it's a bad speaker. If I'm simply saying, and I think Jonathan's getting at the same thing, is if you're chasing really high output, there's better options. But this may be a good option for something else.
I like the way it looks. I mean,
they're pretty speakers. They're pretty speakers. White Glove Review says, hey, Ryan, I installed 2 Behringer A200 amps for my LCR. I'm getting a buzzing noise on all of my speakers. Any clue on what's causing this? Ideas on fixing it. Buzzing is typically ground loop, would be my bet. Are these using XLRs? Are they using RCAs? The 2 noises are ground loop, which is typically more of a buzzing, or noise floor hiss. But that's not what comes to mind. Usually the people will say it's a hissing. Buzzing is usually a ground loop. So if it's XLR, Does the noise go away when you unplug the XLR cables? Does the noise go away if you start unplugging HDMIs? Like try and unplug the HDMI going to your display. Try and unplug the HDMI going from your source. Because remember, even if they're AOCs, active optical cables, most of them still have copper in them. They still have a ground wire. So because of that, grounds can traverse between equipment over your HDMIs. Doesn't have to just be a speaker or power cable. It can absolutely be an HDMI. So if you unplug your XLRs as go away, you unplug your HDMIs as go away. If you unplug your XLRs, you can get a ground lifter and put it in line, or you can snip the ground or take out the ground pin in the XLR and see if that goes away. I like the ground lifters as a test because then you're not ruining an XLR cable. Maybe they're cheap and you don't have to worry about it. That's a fair test. You can ground all of your amps and all of your equipment to the same ground lug or back to the AVR. So they're all terminating to the same ground. That could be something else.
I've had real good luck with that, just grounding the chassis to the ground pin on your outlet.
Yeah.
Without doing that, my amps all buzz, and after doing that, they don't.
Well, a big reason for that is most Denon and Marantz AVRs don't have a ground pin.
Mm-hmm. But they have a ground plug on the back, so
they do
like a screw. You take a pigtail wire, you screw it into that ground screw. Sometimes it's named phono ground or whatever. You screw your wire into that. You then pigtail it, daisy chain it between your amplifiers. Like take out a chassis screw on your amplifiers, and then wire that wire into the chassis screw. So strip off a little bit of the paint around the chassis screw, make that wire make contact with the chassis of your amp, daisy chain to the next amp. I mean, I've got a lot of daisy chains because I got a lot of amps, but you just do that and then wire all that into the ground on the outlet. On the outlet, or if you have multiple outlets using, ground it to all the outlets, and that will almost always get rid of your noise, no matter what your noise is. A little bit of a hassle, but it's like a one-time deal. You don't have to do it anymore. So I have a thread on that on ABS Forum. I'll give you a link so you can see how that's done if you want to pursue that. Otherwise, ground lift, like Ryan's talking about, HDMI is a big stinker in that, especially if your display's on a different outlet than your stereo stuff, a different circuit even. So,
or if your amps and your AV are on different or pre are on different circuits. I mean, and it's also not just different circuits. You could have them on the same, like two on the same breaker, on the same whatever. But if they're on different phases, that can also cause a problem. So there's all different kinds of issues that can present itself as a ground loop, and they're a pain in the ass to troubleshoot. So Godspeed. Hopefully you're able to find it. I'm sure you will. They're just frustrating.
So this post is post 2164. I'll put it in chat, and you can follow that and see how to pigtail your amps together with the ground wire. Let's see here. That should come up. It's if you can't find the link, or if you're watching this later and don't have the ability to click it, it's Archaea's multi-purpose home theater thread on ABS Forum, and it's post 2164 that shows you how to make that ground wire.
Don't listen to Archaea. That guy doesn't know what he's talking about.
Mine sounds like some sort of industrial helicopter without those ground wires. With that wire
immersion,
all gone, completely gone.
Immersion. I'm imagining you in the Matrix movie where the helicopter's flying over and Neo's grabbing Trinity, and you just unplug the ground loop, and it's like immersion. I've brought in the helicopter. The helicopter's in the room.
It's bad.
It can be very bad.
And even I'll notice on some occasions, if you have your XL wire or your RCA wire running by a power wire, like even just proximity, if they're like running right next to you, that can cause that. So if you can separate them out like a couple inches, that'll be enough. I've run into that situation before too. Even with the grounding thing, that can still become an issue. So you keep your power wire away from your.
Ideally, if they need to cross, they need to be perpendicular. Don't run them parallel. They need to be perpendicular. As low amount of contact as possible. There's actually some properties that when they run perpendicular, they can. What's the word? They can reject noise too in some capacities. But Derek, this is a quick question. Jonathan, what type of screen are you using?
I have an older style screen. It's a Seymour XD. Seymour screens. It's the Seymour XD acoustic transparent fabric. It's like 0.85, 0.87 gain. Real world.
Still around.
Yep. Is it still
Oh yeah.
current version? Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean it's probably 10 or 15 years old. It's a forum darling. A lot of people still like it.
It's probably his best-selling screen. It's what Kevin was using last night.
Yeah, it's around in the Kansas City community for sure.
JSOL36, thanks Ryan for helping me get the Kaleidescape. We'll contact you soon further. Absolutely. Anything you need. There's a QR code in the upper right corner. I try and set people in the right direction. I'm not going to tell you to buy something you don't need. I'll talk you out of something if I think it's not advantageous. But glad everything came together, JSIL. That's always the plan. It's always where we want to be. So glad that all worked out. Big Street Cinema. When you calculate with a 32, how many 18s is in the setup usually? Every room is different, but you get the point. When you calculate with a 32, how many 18?
Is he saying like how many 18 subs would a 32 be equivalent to?
That's what I feel like he's asking.
I don't even know how to do that reference because I don't know how much excursion the 32s have. Like I've never really even been tested on like a database type site, have they? Those giant subs?
No. It's a lot. But it depends on the sub, and it depends on the cabinet. It depends on many factors.
It's probably in the neighborhood. I mean, if you had equal excursion with the driver cone differences, it's probably in the neighborhood of 4, 6, 8, 18s, right? A single 32,
something like that. He said Big Street says no. So Big Street. I'm gonna wait for you to clarify and see if we can give you a better answer. So write it in chat what you actually mean, and we'll get you taken care of.
So Derek, I see your post saying you're using Spanx for your screen. There's nothing wrong with using Spanx, but it's very low gain. So you're not getting a lot of brightness back. A lot of times that measures in like the low 60s type gain. So you're losing 40% brightness over just a neutral white screen.
You can't, and depending on the spandex, what it is, I mean, you could get some texture. I'm not saying you are. There's just a lot of variables that can come into play. So just make sure that whatever material you're trying to use, that it's doing what you need it to do in your room. Whatever the limitations are in the room, the material should be trying to help you get a better image, not detracting from it.
So, sorry, I asked a question based on our last grounding discussion, so we'll just address it real quick. He said when you switch the new Marantz with XLR, you still need to use the ground wire, and that answer is yes. And I think it's like Ryan was saying, because the Denon and Marantzes have an ungrounded, like their power cord's not grounded, and the amplifiers are grounded, so you have a conflict there. So you need to ground everything together, or deground everything. Basically, either you need everything to have grounds or everything not to have grounds in order to avoid that. And since they don't, you just manually.
But not having a ground could be bad. Technically, it could be. It won't in normal operation, but if something happens and you don't have a ground, bad things could theoretically happen. Brian Cobb says, I have an AVM 90 with 4 sub outs plus 6 subs. Many DSPs said use a Flex HTX with 8 outs. Use 1 sub out from the AVR to 1 input on the DSP. Calibrate the subs on the DSP, and ARC will treat it as 1 sub. Thoughts?
Yes. Yeah, I mean, that's fair. But you can't just like arbitrarily hook them up to the mini DSP and say good enough. They're talking about time alignment. They're talking about like making sure you're set up properly there so that the Anthem can do what it needs to do from
right. So
a good starting point.
What they're saying is calibrate through the mini DSP, get a baseline calibration manually using their filters, and then apply ARC through the Anthem on top of that and let Anthem do what it needs to. But you need to time align. You need to apply some level of calibration, in my opinion, though you could theoretically just time align the subs on the mini DSP, because if you don't, the Anthem's only going to be able to time align one thing. And if everything else is out,
it's just
still going to be out.
Yeah. So this isn't a complicated thing. Let's not leave you in the lurch. What you're going to need is some sort of measuring equipment. And to do the time alignment, you're going to start with 1 sub, and you're going to add the second one. It's probably not going to be in the same physical proximity unless you stack them. If you stack them, this gets real easy. But if you're not stacking them, if they're not equal distance, then you need to change the delay on the second sub until you get the highest basically response. So your frequency response between the first sub is here. Maybe add the second sub. It should give you like 3 dB more if you're not co-located, and it might not be exactly 3 dB. It might be like 2 or 1. As you change the delay, if they're not equal distance, your overall summed SPL should be raising. When you're at the top, if you change the delay and it raises and it raises and it lowers and it raises, you want to get it to where it stops at the highest level it can be at, the highest SPL level on your response. And that's how you know you've got them time aligned. And you can do this. It's fairly easy if you're watching it with real-time measurements. You can just do a little bit at a time and kind of get that thing maxed out. Then you add an X sub. If it's not equal distance, you're going to do the same thing. You're going to set the delay on that third sub until it raises the overall SPL capture as high as it possibly can be on your graph. I don't know if that makes sense. It's super easy once you start it and if you're in front of it, but if you haven't done it before, I'm not sure that description makes sense, but that's how it works. And I'll tell you, I recently in the last 6 months did that on my system just to make sure Odyssey was setting my stuff right, and I got the exact same to an inch. I did it first before Odyssey calculated just to make sure, like as a sanity check, and then I ran Odyssey, and we both had arrived at the exact same distances for every sub within 1 inch.
Look, Mom, I'm a computer.
Yeah. So what I'm trying to say is it's totally possible to do this manually. Like it's not something that's you have to let the processor do. You can do it.
Jonathan, are you selling your NZ500?
Yes, maybe not quite yet, but yes. I'm still playing with it. Like I at least want to do the movie night where we're splitting it out. Look at Ryan. I've offered it to a couple friends so far. I haven't publicly posted it. Well, we did for the crawl, but surprisingly, nobody picked it up at the crawl. But I haven't posted it on the forums or Craigslist or Facebook or anything. It's just
I'm convinced that if Jonathan wasn't married, he would just have a wall of projectors. Some of them never being used. It would just be a wall.
I have 4 of them in my house right now.
What is wrong with you?
I shouldn't. I have the LS12000 still, which I haven't sold, but I need to.
And you still have the AV10 and the
6800, which I keep for outdoor movie nights, and I have the QL3000 and I have the NZ500. Those are all mine. Like
you have a 6800 and an AV10.
Yeah. Sorry. I mean, what can you say? It'd be fun to have them all hung up there. I mean, you can see there's 2 of them right there.
See, I told you this is exactly. I said you would have a wall of projectors.
The NZ500 is on the bottom, and the QL3000 is on the top. NZ500, I would like to keep if my room worked with it. Like it doesn't. I can't do a 16:9 image where it is right now. It overblows a screen, but I can do a 240 image, so a CinemaScope image, which is what it's set for.
He has one, Jason.
I really think at this point, because there's no single perfect projector, I really think it's nice to have. You have a better example of a perfect projector, but that's not a consumer friendly price.
Well, we talk about this all the time. You can compromise, and one of the compromises is spending more. Unfortunately,
sure.
So that was the compromise, was spending more, and that's
in the mere mortal tier,
shut up.
Where most of us live and reside. If you have like a JVC for like really dark content, say you're watching something like Harry Potter, it's better at stuff like that. It just is. Or if you're watching something that's like bright and sports or gaming or anything like that, the QL3000 is better. So having one of each is pretty ideal.
I agree.
Like you just turn on the one that's relevant to the content you're watching.
I mean, I would like to have a Ferrari if I want to drive fast, and a G-Wagon if I need an SUV, and Ford Lightning if I need a pickup, and then I could just choose.
Yeah.
That'd be nice.
They both have their strengths, and I don't need to keep both, but I won't keep both. I'm going to sell the NZ500. The final decision. But it's not half bad playing with it still.
So JSL, if you need one, reach out to him, and then maybe after this get together, we can send it on its way. I'm gonna push you in that direction.
Yeah, I don't need to keep all these. I need to sell my LS12000 too. So yeah,
you still.
I still have it. It's been on the bed. I haven't even hooked it back up
It's on.
in the
It's like
guest
it's getting
bedroom.
sweet rest after such a life. Okay.
Hmm.
So we got that. So Big Street, where did he?
What is Kenny's cinema experience saying? I'm the person who would swap out the projector during each wizard battle. What is that even referring to?
I don't know.
Kind of funny, but I
But
don't.
yeah, you probably would. And I don't even know what that means. So here's a clarification for Big Street, and then we'll go back to the other question. If you're looking at a 32-inch, for example, 8 to 30 hertz, how many 18s is often installed for 30 to 8? Oh, to have the same SPL level so you're not killing the 18s or vice versa. It depends. A lot of installs that I see, both that we do and that other integrators do, a lot of times it's 4 and 1. Like it'll be 4 18.2s, so it's each one has 2 18s or 4 single driver 18s and a 32. But what it really comes down to is there's no magic number. Like there's no number that's going to say this is what you need. It all comes back to what the room needs. Like what does the room need in order to make this work? So I can't say, oh, you need 8 32s or 230 or excuse me, 8 18s or 6 18s or 4 and 2 32s or 1 or what have you. It all comes down to what the room needs. A lot of times people want to do 4, some of them do 2 and a 32. It just depends. The Experience Center has 8 21s, 2 32s, and a 50. So I'm pretty sure the 32s could run away because they're, well, not in mid bass. The 21s are mid bass monsters, but the 32s are super sensitive. And I mean, my house could fall down if I let everything go. They could fall down just from the 50. Probably break my back eventually. House is still standing. How did Ryan die? Oh, the sub killed him. Did it fall on him? No. Just air pressure broke his back. So terrible answer, Big Street, but it really just depends. There's no magic answer. And then your other question was, you often see a 32 and a 50 kind of near the sofa. Is it a near field feel to it or more pressuring the whole room? It depends on the frequency that the pass filter is set to. So if you're using a 32 or a 50 as a true infrasonic sub, they're not going to play where the kick subs are playing. And I say kick subs, the subs that are doing the higher frequencies. So they don't feel like a traditional near field because the ultra low frequencies don't feel the same as something like a kick drum or snare or something like that. They don't, or gunshots, they don't feel the same. It's a totally different experience. It's much longer wavelengths. It's not going to have that, tactile smack that more of the mid and upper bass is going to deliver. So not really, though, on things like, we bring this up a lot, Imagine Dragons Radioactive, when they're hitting the bass drum with the 50 and the 32s, it feels like, because how that track is done, there's a lot of energy that extends down into single digits. It feels like you're in the drum when that happens and you're sitting in the main listening position. Like it's a visceral experience when that happens. And you can tell if I take the infras out that there's a big part missing, but it doesn't feel like a traditional near field. So to get the near field effect, or what most people know from a near field, you need to allow them to play with the kicks up to get that same feeling. Would you agree with that, Jonathan?
Generally, I was kind of reading comments, so I listened to about half of that.
Oh, he doesn't listen to me.
I do. I didn't really disagree with what I heard.
Good question, though. And keep the questions coming, guys. We're going through these.
I'm trying to.
Miles says, I'm looking to replace my Polk XT setup with Pro audio gear. Any suggestions for a small room? I'm assuming he means like Pro Audio is what you would use in Pro Audio, not the Pro Audio brand.
Yeah. So Miles, I know there's a guy on ABS forum that has the set of Wharfdale Pro Audio stuff that he's real happy with, and pollinates a lot of forums, say that he loves it, and that's great. I'm sure it's good. Behringer 212XT or HT get a lot of rave reviews. That's something that's a possibility. Mackie C200 is another possibility. Probably spend some time on ABS forum reading a little bit. JBL has some pro audio stuff you could look into. Also, if you have a musician's friend or guitar center in your town, you can go into their store. They usually have like the speaker selector things where you can cycle through all the different speakers that they sell and get an idea of what you like. They do sound a little bit different, especially as you go through the pricing tier. More accurate, usually costs a little bit more. But even as I've said in the million times before, even at the like $200 to $300 range, you can get a really capable speaker in the pro audio world. You don't really want to dip below that because they start making too many sacrifices, in my opinion. And the way the economy is now, it might be more towards the 300 range per speaker. But you'll hear some of that as you go to like one of those stores and listen to them. The Mackie C200 is probably 300, 350, and that's a really, really nice choice, in my opinion. Now, how you said a small room, how small are we talking? Because you may be
Those
overkill.
speakers are not going to work in that room, though. They're too big.
You may be overkill for what you're trying to do.
What's your budget? What are you trying to accomplish? There's smaller choices. There's always a compromise, right? There's smaller usually comes with less performance unless you throw more money at it. So and even then, it depends. So give us some more information on the room, what the budget is. Maybe we can give you.
So Miles is saying in the chat, he doesn't mean the brand. I guess he's just talking about the headroom. So if you want reference capable gear, generally speaking, in a normal sized room, it's an 8-inch woofer, and they use compression drivers in pro audio gear most commonly. All those will be capable for small to medium to.
It says 10 by 12 by 8.
Man, that's pretty small. Like not negative, just saying that's pretty small. I don't know that you need to.
He says no limit on budget. What I would do
in that size room, he probably could get reference on like your traditional speakers, like a traditional audiophile speaker.
Why are you moving away from Polk? What do you feel like you're not getting? I have some ideas on what you could do in a room that size. Aesthetics going to matter. Size is going to matter. You don't want to put a big speaker in there. You don't want to put a speaker in there that's a huge eyesore because it's just going to take up a lot of room, space, and draw your eye to it.
So Kenny's asking, are you saying 8-inch mid woofers? Yeah, I am saying 8-inch woofers. Typically, to get full range reference capability, 8-inch is kind of like the sure safety zone. Some 6.5-inch drivers can do it. Some
if they have enough excursion,
very high sensitivity. They're not going to be tuned low. They're going to be like rolled off, say below 100 hertz or 120 hertz if they're 6-inch to do it. But 8-inch is kind of getting into the more surefire realm, at least for cinema. When I'm talking more cinema, dynamic peaks and so forth for reference with no compression, that kind of thing.
This is a tough question because let's say you did like a traditional PA speaker, which is what a lot of these are. They're PA size. You're going to eat up at least in width, just talking width, a foot on each side. And that's with the speaker right on the wall.
Yeah.
I mean, then you're down to 8 feet.
So Tim's in the comment talking about his QSCs. Tim, how thick are your SR 1200s? That might be an option. QSC SR 1200s. They're a cinema speaker. They're definitely going to be reference capable, even a much larger room than you have. And those are about $300 a piece or so.
Yeah. That's a tough one with a room that size. But what I would do, Miles, shoot me a message and we can take this question offline. I put my QR code up in the upper right corner and we'll see if we can get you in the right direction. Whether that be something from Pro Audio, from Guitar Center, or something from me, I don't know. I need to know more about your use case for what makes sense and how you use the room. But scan that code. Okay.
Why'd that post that in there twice? I only did it once.
I don't know. You're just bad at this whole thing. Okay. Let's see. MW says, Ryan, for the black swans, is it a simple high shelf filter on the HF section? Yeah, you're just putting pass filters in. That's all you're doing. Or shelf filters so that you're having it roll off. That's it. MW asked another question. Is there a shortage on black swans? The beryllium is in shortage. There is one manufacturer that does it, and prices are getting more expensive. You can get them, but their prices are going up, and there's a wait for them. Derek Harrell, assuming fully calibrated on a 145 to 150 inch 16 by 9 screen in a fully light controlled room, what aspect of the QL7000 will be the most noticeably better than
Man,
white?
it's just that brightness that's like mesmerizing, man. We've talked about it before. It's like looking into a bonfire, and you can't hardly pull your eyes away because it's something it's going to be like 4 times brighter than a flagship Sony or JVC.
Mm-hmm.
And it's real world brightness. I mean, it's not like just like it looks amazing in that sense. That's similar to what my size is when I'm over zoomed on my CinemaScope. But mine's a 152 when it's over zoomed to CinemaScope, and the QL7000 in here was like unforgettable. It's still not going to have the blacks of like a JVC or Sony, but what it does have is just mesmerizing.
It's a different experience. It's a trade-off, right? You're losing native contrast for brightness. You're losing ANSI contrast for brightness, but you're gaining unbelievable sharpness. Those lenses are amazing.
Yeah.
And the brightness, like you cannot forget about the brightness. So
the lens was great. The pixel alignment was great. So sharpness was like off the charts. That QL7000 looked like a giant TV in my room.
It does.
Like a giant TV.
That's how I feel the Christie looks. And the QL is bright enough to get that same kind of feeling. It's a different experience. Now, a drawback that I have with them is not necessarily a problem with the projector, but it can expose issues that you weren't previously noticing on the screen. So things like weave become much easier to see when it's much brighter. Any type of imperfection in the screen, way easier to see. If your room has a lot of ambient light reflections, it just became way more of a problem, right? Because you're throwing way more light at the screen. So you've got to take more into consideration because there's a lot more energy in the room. And what that energy is going to do and allow you to notice depends on what's happening in the room. But just things to consider.
Whites are so much whiter. Like you don't realize that your projector is pretty much doing gray. Like if you have a mainstream 2000 lumen projector, until you get something like that QL7000 on there and you realize like, oh, that's what white looks like.
We're going to say that, and then the next generation is going to come out where we're watching 10,000 nits, and we're going to be like, this looks so, look how dull that is. Look how dim. God, you were looking at 300 nits, and we're all like, our eyes are bloodshot from 10,000 nits.
Yeah, well, it's very memorable. So, like, something that comes to mind on this regard, Secret Level is an Amazon kind of like game Easter egg type shows where they have spin-offs of certain popular games and they just made them into an episode. Secret Level has an intro that has black and white cubes and like little writing lines, and it's a cool little intro. On my LS 12000, on the JVC NZ500, it's unremarkable. It's not very bright. It's not like enthralling. I mean, it has cool sound, but doesn't really call attention. When I watch it on the QL7000 in my room at 100% brightness, that's unforgivable. Like all those white highlights are like, bam, like brilliant white. And we've talked about this a little bit before. There's some subjectivity to perceived contrast that happens. And I think when something's that bright, your eyes kind of clamp down to avoid being overexposed to the brightness, and so it makes the contrast like rein in. Like you don't even think like, oh, this isn't as good a contrast. Instead, you just memorize like how bright that image was.
Yeah, when your retinas are sizzling from the sun, you don't really think about what the blue sky looks like.
So yeah, I mean that QL7000, for instance, has the best presentation of that secret level intro that I've had in my room, and we've had high end JVCs in here and stuff, but where the black levels are clearly better on the JVC, but that brightness is more memorable to me.
So Kenny's Cinema Experience says my BenQ W2720i is calibrated 100% Rec 709. Is white not white? I've never noticed.
It looks grayer when it's next to.
But that's not what he's saying. This is more about gamut. What you're asking, what Kenny's asking, is about gamut, and white is still white. What we're talking about is contrast and your white and black levels. And there is a difference between how far things can go and what white and black is, and how far you can get to absolute white, and what that white looks like will vary based on brightness. It may still measure as white, but what it looks like to us when it's
next to something
measured,
whiter,
is different.
It's really odd because I think back to your room when we were comparing like the Sony to the QL7000, the flagship Sony Bravia 9.
Mm-hmm.
The Sony by itself looked white, like the image looked white if you were on the white screen. But you throw that QL7000 up to it side by side next
to it wasn't white anymore.
3 times bright. Now all of a sudden that Sony's like gray. The white doesn't look white at all. So I don't even know. I don't know how to explain that in technical terms, but that's the subjective impression.
I don't know either. I should ask Jason. I don't know the right answer for that, but
it doesn't even look remotely white. It looks like dirty gray.
Yeah, but that doesn't mean that it's not white.
But it doesn't. Yeah, I mean that's what I'm saying. By itself, it looks nice and white. Like you don't have a problem with it. But when you're next to the brighter image, it's not. It doesn't.
So
look that
Kenny,
way.
don't think that you're not seeing white. You're looking at gamut when you bring up your question, which is something totally not related to this. White in the center of the gamut is still white. You just don't have as much color volume going out to the edges and depth for luminance.
Anthony asked a question I'm going to just address real quick. You don't have to pull it up. He was saying, why is
this one?
Why is your scope? Yeah. I'm talking diagonals instead of wide, so maybe I used the wrong term. A 152-inch diagonal 16:9 is what my 144 cinema scope is when I over zoom to fill the screen.
So when he's over zoomed, it's going to be the same as what the
152
is. Yes.
A 152 16:9.
Yeah. Big Street Cinema 65 SEK. Thank you very much, my friend. Always appreciated, never expected. My Baffle wall is soon ready with 4 18-inch, 3 in the center, 3-inch the rear, 3 in the rear, and JBL dang boy with M2 LCRs. How low do you want to absorb on the Baffle wall behind the screen? I mean, you'd want it as thick as you can go. Really puts you in control. And then you could put reflective surfaces if you wanted to add some reflection on top of that. I would think, wouldn't you?
How low do you want to absorb? Is he asking like how thick?
Frequencies?
Yeah. There's really not any limit there. I mean, some of the rooms I've been in where they've done incredibly thick front treatments sound really good. It kind of makes the front wall a black hole except for your point source for your speakers. I don't have a problem with however thick you want to do it. I mean, like a foot of absorption material behind it, a layer of pink fluffy, however you want to do it. There's not any problem there.
And you can always add reflective surfaces on the top so that higher frequencies get reflected back in the low frequencies because the wavelengths are longer go through and then get absorbed.
On that front wall, he might not even want any reflection though, because that's the source of the sound.
But it depends on what the speaker is expecting, because if you have something like an on wall or an in wall, a lot of times they will use the SBIR as a gain, and if you take that away, you can impact the frequency response of the speaker. So it depends, I would say, on what the speaker is, in my opinion. Maybe if the speaker was, sensitive enough and had enough power handling, you could boost through that. It may not matter. Good question, though. I'm just starring some questions. Okay. You guys are asking good questions. Jimmy Anderson asks, what would you recommend for a flexible HDMI cable to run in the wall that is stable for 4K and 8K? Tried AudioQuest Pro cable.
If he's got an unstable cable, what he had from AudioQuest would probably work if he got a replacement, right? I mean, if it's not, have you run into a situation where a brand just doesn't work with equipment, period, and you can't get it to work? I guess you probably have, actually.
Yes.
Where there was
It
like
depends on what is happening. My recommendation is to use the cable that I have found that has worked amazingly well, and that we currently recommend at MadVR is cords. Specifically the Cords Pro 4. There is up to a 9-meter passive, which is ridiculous for HDMI 2.1. It's unbelievably rigid, ridiculously rigid because
very
it's a passive
thick, you're
cable.
saying, basically?
Oh, it's a thick boy, and it's a pain in the butt to bend.
How are they getting 9 meters out of that? I don't even think that's supposed to be possible.
So
I thought like 4 meters was
super
kind of
thick, super thick, and they've figured out. I'm not smart enough to understand what James was telling me, but they're varying the gauge of the wire in the cable over the distance to help with power fall off, and it is a super efficient cable. So it doesn't attenuate the power nearly as much as something else somehow. I don't know. I just know that it works. And it's been measured by DPL Labs, and it's one of the best cables they've ever measured. And then the AOC equivalent of that is still the Pro 4, and it is also one of the, if not the best measuring cable that DPL Labs has ever measured. And it's the only cable that I can get to work. I have 15 cables in my ceiling. It's dumb. And the Cords Pro 4 is the only one that I can get to work going from the MadVR to the Griffin. It's the only one. Everything else doesn't work. Unless, so I take the MadVR and I put it right next to the Griffin and I run a passive cable to it. Then it'll work because it's short and the power fall off isn't bad. But if I'm running 30 meters, which I am, because the power, HDCP, some needed info, and a bunch of other stuff is still going over copper in these AOCs, it doesn't work. And even when I use a fully fiber optic AOC, it doesn't work either.
that doesn't make
Cords Pro
sense.
4 is the only one that because it's the power that they're injecting. I guess the Griffin's super temperamental with the power that it's getting. Maybe the timing's off. I don't know. All I know is the Cords Pro 4 is the only one that I can get to work. Nothing else works. I have banged my head against the wall for years with this problem, and the Cords Pro 4 is the best that I've had. No question. Unfortunately, they don't sell it direct. You have to get it through a dealer. But it's not an overly expensive cable. I mean, a 30 meters, like, it's not a cheap cable. It's like $300. But you compare that to some of the other cables in the industry, they're like $700, $800, $900, $1,000, which is ridiculous. But the Cords is $300 for a 30 meter. Sorry, I was on my soapbox at my podium. Got me on HDMI.
Is it possible that you have a lot of interference in your ceiling from all the crazy wiring you have?
No, because we run into this at like Cedia and stuff all the time too. So I actually walk around with a bunch of kludges and hot fix ways to get around this stuff. Like it's not just my room. I wish it was. I've run them on the floor. We took them out into the garage and had nothing around them and they didn't work. I mean,
well, okay. So I'm going to counter you a little bit. I'm not saying that you're wrong on your experience, but I'm going to say that might not be the normal experience for a user to say like only one cable will ever work.
Oh, I'm not saying it's the only one that will ever work. I'm saying in my particular application, that is the only one I've gotten to work. So, but my application is a super complicated signal chain. So I'm pushing everything to the very limit. It's like saying only a certain set of tires will work on this hypercar, right? But if you're not driving a hypercar, certain other cables are going to work fine. But my signal chain is so complicated and there's so many things going on with it and signals, a lot's being asked of it, that if anything is wrong, it's just going to go and die. So that, yes, you're absolutely right. And I'm glad you bring that up, is don't think that no other cable is going to work. It's just, this is the only cable that I can get to work in this application.
Right. So if you're encountering a lot of issues and you're tired of dealing with them, maybe that's the cable to pursue.
I would agree. But
if you're not encountering a bunch of issues and you don't, I mean, it sounds like you're encountering at least one, but I still say that could just be a faulty cable, and maybe the next one would work if you got a replacement.
Maybe.
Because I mean, there's plenty of cables. I mean, I'm running a 50-foot cable that only failed once but got replaced immediately, and it was like $90 on Amazon.
Mm-hmm.
What's the name of it? I can't even think of the name of it.
Rui Pro?
Yes, Rui Pro. RUI. And people have good success with them for the most part. So, yeah.
Yeah. If you are tired of dealing with it and you want a cable that's just going to work, the cords is the one that I've used to get myself out of most problems. But that doesn't.
And generally speaking, I think this is a worth bringing up too. Generally speaking, I don't know anything about this particular test he's going. That's pretty amazing if they got 9 meters out of it. But a copper cable for HDMI 2.1 with all the features like 120 hertz HDR, all the features, 10-bit color gradient, you typically don't get more than 4 meters on any consumer cable. Like,
it's
that's
a very specially designed cable. It's a special cable that was designed, and there was a lot of engineering put into it because of these problems. 9 meters is the longest it'll go. They can't go any longer than that. I
mean, that's remarkable if they got that much.
It's really cool. James Chen, we're going to have him. I'm going to try and get him on to the podcast at some point on the AVS one, when we actually talk about like HDMI and what the problem cases are and what symptoms can be and what the cables are actually doing. They're super smart, and they're a very objectively driven company, and they test every single one of their cables. So normally with HDMI, you test
a sampling,
one of the length or a sample. And then historically, every cable below that length, like if you test a 5 meter, every cable that's shorter than 5 meters gets grandfathered in. Unless you go into the super, like...
Which is ironic, because that's not necessarily going to be proven true, which we talked about before, because the impedance on the cable is expected to be, like, you need to use thinner wires for shorter lengths to increase the impedance to make the cable work.
There's a lot of things that go into it, but to expect that everything below that is going to work is asking for problems.
It's not proven sensible.
And there's things now that they've put in place, but it's expensive to get the extra certifications. So the holographic stickers and stuff, that it's expensive to do the extra stuff. So a lot of companies don't, but it's a mess. So don't just get an HDMI cable and says, oh, it should do HDMI 2.1 and my system's still not working, so it must not be the cable, it's something else. Don't think that way. It can absolutely still be the cable. HDMI, just like ground loops, suck to troubleshoot. Not fun. Good question, though. Anthony says 30 meters or 30 feet. It is 30 meters. She's a long boy. The cable, my rack is on the opposite side of the theater. So it's behind the screen. It's about 20 feet away from the screen. And the projector is all the way in the back of the theater. And the theater is almost 30 feet long. And I have to run across the theater and back before I get back there. So it's every bit of 100 feet. There's not much service loop in the back. I may have 10 feet extra when I get back there. It's a long run.
Well, but once you go to fiber, it doesn't. If you have good quality fiber, it doesn't even really matter how long.
Well,
at that point,
the fiber doesn't. The copper does. That's where all of these problems are coming from, unless it's a hybrid cable issue. Yeah, and most of them are hybrid cables. It's the copper that's causing these problems, because you think Ohm's law, right? Mm-hmm. It's as distance increases, resistance also increases. So that's where your problems come from, is this copper, and Cords has figured out efficiency and injectors and stuff that get around this or help with this. So it's a pain in the butt. She's a pain. Kenny asks on this topic, how does active HDMI fare to thick boy passive cables?
It's like wet base. Now you've introduced a new term, thick boy cables.
Typically you want to run passive as much as possible. But when you start getting into longer and longer runs, you can introduce the same type of problems because in most AOCs, it's still copper unless you're doing something like a Celerity or a Fiber Command. Those are really and Rui Pro's new cable. Those are the only three that I know of that are doing it right now. They're all fiber, and then they inject power on the other side. Unless you're doing that, all the other ones are still using copper. So you're having the same issue. It's just the video signal is going over fiber. It's not going over copper like the passives are. So you're running kind of into a different issue, but it's kind of the same. Ideally, you want to be in that 2, 3, 4 meter range. Anything longer than that in HDMI 2.1, and you're maybe asking for it unless your cable is specifically designed to do it, like the Cords Pro 4. HDMI 2.1 with TMDS is easier to do. You're not asking as much of the cable. The EDID table's smaller. There's other things that are not on it, like QMS, and a bunch of DRC or DSC and a bunch of other stuff that came with HDMI 2.1. That's not being asked of the cable. So it's easier to run. So your window, your tolerance window is wider than it is on HDMI 2.1 with FRL. So short passives, ideally 2 meters, 3 meters are the best. If you go too short, your signal can be too hot and you can run into problems. Doesn't typically happen, but can happen. You can burn out optics. You can do all kinds of stuff. But 2 to 3 meters is the sweet spot for HDMI 2.1.
There's a lot of good comments tonight.
There are.
We're starring in the background. We're not.
I am.
We're not caught up yet, so don't lose hope if your comment hasn't been addressed.
The Spoonie G. Recently, my HDMI CEC has not been working to turn on and off all my gear. It had worked for over a year, and without changing any settings, it no longer works. Any idea what could cause this? Are you using an AOC?
Man, sometimes when that kind of stuff happens, you just got to unplug all your HDMI sources and like turn everything off and on without the HDMI connected, and then reconnect it, and it will probably work unless something's failed.
CEC can also have problems.
I mean, I've had success with that. Just disconnect everything, recycle everything, plug it back in, and it will probably work.
Take the IT approach and restart everything.
But it's important to have everything unplugged, so it basically recycles the EDIDs, like the connection components. It's going to get a fresh start. So power cycle everything with it disconnected, and then connect it, and you'll probably be good.
Theoretically, it should do that when it's restarted, but who knows if the HDMI reset's being done.
I've had success doing it in that weird, maybe unnecessary way, but it's worked.
Okay, we'll try that. It can be the cable too, because CEC is part of one of the connections for the cable, and if that has failed, it's not going to work. So potentially running a new cable may fix it too.
And make sure that your settings on both the display and the receiver are still toggled on. You might have had some sort of update that stealth changed it and you didn't know it, that disabled that, possibly. I don't know what display device you're using or what AVR, but sometimes those updates change things like that, the defaults.
Good question. Schmuck91 says, how do you think AI will influence or change the future of 2-channel and home theater?
AI music's not there yet to be changing anything yet, in my opinion. It could organize your catalog, your music and movie catalog. It could help you. I mean, AI is fantastic when it helps you find new songs.
Yeah.
Like Pandora's algorithm to help me find new stuff all the time. They're like 100% hit rate for me. I love everything Pandora has when it's discovered music for me. For me, it works really well. Way better than like Apple Music or Amazon Music's like Spotify's auto discovery. Pandora's is spot on. They're constantly finding new stuff I like. That kind of thing is probably where it goes. Where else would you see it going? I'm not sure where else it would go.
Maybe stuff like what Mad VR is doing with motion interpolation, deinterlacing, helping make things better on antiquated signals. So like upscaling for audio and video in real time, maybe. My direction, I would think.
Quite a bit more advanced than what we have right now, but
calibration, figuring out like room EQ and
That's a long way away. Think about the hardware that's required for AI, and then think about the hardware that's in receivers. I mean, I guess they could offload the files to like some upload service that runs it on their machines or whatever.
Maybe. I think it's more of calibration in making and fixing things, I think, is a big part of it. Not creating, but fixing.
All the little AI stuff on like this OLED in front of me is kind of
Nah,
goofy, isn't it?
I
Like
don't
they
use any
could
of
have
that.
little AI sound, AI picture, all that kind of stuff. It doesn't. I kind of disable it
I
after.
think that's just marketing. I think that's just marketing. I don't know that that's actually doing anything. LG, are you doing anything? They don't watch this.
Yeah, LG.
Stitch. Ryan, when you sell an integrator remote control system, what is that process like? Also, do any of them work with voice search? I don't recommend a lot of integrator remote things. I can't bring myself to do it because if I was in my client's position, I would not want to be held hostage to that. And because of that, I feel ethically bound to not do that because I wouldn't want that. I don't like that. So I don't do it. I've had good luck with Nick's home theater web remote. It's worked really well. It gives you a lot of control. You can control it on your phone, tablet, computer, whatever. You just don't have a physical button. Jonathan wants a physical remote. Uh, I'd like having my tablet, but I don't. I don't really sell one. I don't know that I've ever sold one. It feels dirty. I guess I don't like it because I don't like the idea that I'm telling somebody, hey, if you have an issue, you have to call me. If you want to add something to your remote, you have to call me. If you want to change something on your remote, you have to call me, and then you have to pay me. That doesn't feel right to me. I wouldn't want that. So I'm not going to do that to a customer. So I use Nick's remote and it's great. It's not as polished. You kind of have to be your own IT support, but it's free and you're not having to pay somebody to come fix it. I mean, maybe you're that guy that wants to, but I mean, I'll help you set up Nick's remote. I think it's a lot more, you have a lot more control over doing what you want to do instead of a lot of those remotes like Crestron, Control 4, RTI, even Ava, Elon, all of those, they're great. But man, a lot of times you have to figure out ways around problems. You have to figure out customers asking for this. How can I just smash this together and make it work? And the programming, Jonathan, if you saw it on the background, it's like, ugh, it's awful. So I don't like it. Look at Nick's remote. That's what I would suggest. Sorry, I don't have a better answer.
You have to give him the actual name of the product because is it
HT Web Remote.
Mhm. It's on ABS for him.
It
He's got to
is.
publish. It's free.
It is.
He's authors it and maintains it free.
Yep. It's open source. Good question. Oops, sorry says, do you have any of the Square subs, Ryan? He's talking about the Ascendo 28s. Have you seen those?
Yep.
Yeah. So they have 4 voice coils in them. The sub's insane. Like it's an insane sub. I don't have any. They're designed for a specific use case. They're meant to be able to play your infra stuff and your high stuff together. They are very expensive and they're not the smallest things in the world. I think they weigh 300 pounds. We have to set them up at CD every year. They suck to move. They suck so much to move that Jeffrey put handles on them to help us move them. So I'm not looking forward to that at CEDIA. They're a fantastic sub. I think, like, if you look at the frequency response, the 32s are technically better, but the 32 is enormous. So it's a sub designed for a specific purpose. It's designed for an application where you need a bunch of subs for something like waveforming. That's what it's designed to do. And it does it very well. It doesn't have the excursion of something like a 32, and it doesn't have the sensitivity of something like the 32, but it's much smaller and it can play a much larger part of the frequency band than something like a 21 can. They can dig a lot further and have a lot more output than the 21s do at the lower frequencies. Don't have them personally, though, but I've heard them several times. Jimmy Anderson, this is a question for you, Jonathan. Replace my AV8802A with new AV20, and the picture keeps dropping out on my Shield Pro and Apple TV.
I don't have a Shield Pro. I don't have any advice there. With your Apple TV, man, just try a different cable. I've had that happen before. Just swap the cable out.
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't have to. We've gone into this on one of the other podcasts, and Ryan certainly knows more about the HDMI stuff than I do with his dealings with Mad VR. But all cables are not created equal, and I think this is something I've learned in the last few years. Like when we originally went to HDMI, the kind of like thought was like, if it works, it works. Like it's on. But that's not necessarily proven true. You can get little like spots on the picture. You can have cut in, cut out. Like it. Just try a different cable. Like I 6 months ago, I went through this with my Apple TV. I don't even know what happened. Like it worked for a long time. I had like 5 cables. I swapped them out. One of them worked, and the others stopped working. No idea why. No idea why a cable would fail that's not moving. Like, but it happened.
So. The heads can heat up, and they can fail. The port can change the voltage that it's outputting, and attenuation can become there's a bunch of stuff that can happen. But in this case, something that a lot of people don't think about, 8802 to AV20, I am betting that you went from HDMI 2.0 to HDMI 2.1. And the Apple TV, I don't think the Shield Pro is, but the new Apple TVs are HDMI 2.1.
They do support it.
And it's going to change how the HDMI signal is handled and how it was sent. And if the cable is mismanaging that in some way, or it could be the 8802 or the AV20, I don't know. This is just the most common thing. If the cable is deficient in some way, it can fail. So Jonathan's first suggestion, I absolutely agree with, change the cable.
You can also try, in a way of troubleshooting, you can try a different HDMI input on your AV20 and just see if it behaves differently on a different HDMI input. Mm-hmm. Chances are it's going to be the cable versus the AV20.
It usually is. It usually is the cable. John asks, would you go with a microperf screen or woven? Are there any advantages to one versus the other?
There's differences, maybe advantages. So at its face level, microperf typically can have brighter gain. You have to have the speakers stand further back from the speaker in order to get the full natural frequency response. You usually have a little bit more attenuation with microperf over woven. Woven usually might be giving a little advantage to the sound over microperf. So that's kind of the trade-offs in general terms.
Typically with microperf, though, you're going to get a more fidelic image. It's going to be sharper than a woven screen. Woven screens tend to be a little softer because of all the fibers, at least in my experience. It depends on your use case. What are you trying to do? What do you value most? How far are the speakers away? How far are you away? All those things come into effect. What's ambient light like in the room? What are the reflections like in the room? All of those things come into consideration when picking a screen. Picking a screen is not like I thought it was many years ago. If I just going to get a piece of vinyl. I'm not saying that a $5,000 screen is better than a $300 screen. It's not what I'm saying. I'm saying you need to get the screen that fixes problems in your room and makes the experience better in somehow, instead of just putting a screen in there, a piece of white vinyl. Get what makes sense. Get what fixes problems. Use it as a tool. What would you get, though, Jonathan? If you had to buy another screen, would you get microperf or woven?
Cost no object?
Cost no object.
I mean, like you say, if you have the ability to have a large amount of space behind your screen so you don't have the negative aspect of losing some frequency response and the attenuation, then probably microperf is the option. But if you're limited on space and you have to have it real close to, then woven's a great option. What would I choose? It depends on my setup. Like how I have my speakers arranged. I don't know that I have a static answer for that. I'm real happy with my Seymour XD after all these years.
Good screen.
It's super easy to clean. It's got kind of a plasticized fabric, so I can use dishwater soap and clean it with. a kid marks on it or puts a cheesy Dorito hand on it or something.
Seems like you speak from experience.
Yeah. Or a bug gets smashed on it and there's blood on the screen. I just wiped it off. That's happened several times. Someone smashes a bug on there, one of my kids. So like those are things to consider. In a microperf, that'd be easier to wipe off traditionally than the cloth screen, but the Seymour XD woven screen has that kind of plasticized thing, so it works the same way as a microperf as far as being able to wipe it and clean it. Smaller, like think about high thread count sheets. The more 4K oriented fabric or 8K oriented fabric is going to have like higher thread count, so that it's a finer weave. You don't see the texture of the weave and so forth as you get into the more expensive woven screen.
So there's actually an interesting experience that somebody I know had.
Mm-hmm.
And they saw, while you couldn't see the weave,
Mm-hmm.
the image was sharper on the XD than it was on a normal weave, like on a finer weave. So it's the trade-off, right? You're trading, can I see the weave, but I can see it, but the image is sharper, versus I can't see it, but the fibers are thinner, so the image is softer.
Interesting.
So
would you say that more tends to reveal itself more on one than the other?
What do you mean?
Moire, however you say it.
No. You didn't have any issues with Moire. I think that comes down to the projector, the lens, the screen, in general. A lot of people don't have issues with Moire, and Moire is really more of an issue with higher light output projectors and brighter, but you don't have an issue with Moire, so
I do not.
Had bad luck.
And I didn't on the 7000 either with the Seymour XD screen.
Just had bad luck.
Which is probably like 800 nits, so I don't seem to have that problem. What you asked me the question? Do you have an answer for it? Do you statically choose one or the other?
I would go woven, no question.
Why?
Because the audio is too important to me. I mean, I guess I could do.
You have enough headroom.
I could, but the other part of this is I sit too close and I would see the perf holes. I can't, with my current screen, I can't see the weave.
Mm-hmm.
So it's tight enough that I get the AT. I've put perf up there and I can see the perf holes. So it's not, I don't want that.
Mm-hmm.
Mine's, I guess, based on seating distance. I could get around it and just EQ through it, but and I could move the speakers back, but I see the perf because of how close I sit. I'm 9 feet, so I see it.
I've been in rooms that are well done with both, so I don't have a strong opinion personally. But it's like you say, it's horses for courses. You choose the one that works for your room and equipment.
Yep. Martin, which speakers for a large basement theater? 744 with plan for direct art, looking at Ascendo the 10s, the new JTR Kalos, open to others like JBL Synthesis SCL6s. Got a opinion, Jonathan?
Those are all going to do reference, probably, depending on, you say large basement. We don't know how big you are, but those are all very capable speakers.
Yeah. He's in the right ballpark.
Yeah. You're going to want to probably just try to experience them and see what you like, go find people on the forum that have them, ask if you can come over and get a demonstration of them or that kind of thing. I
agree. Advice. I mean, I have my subjective preferences, but it doesn't mean that any of the other ones are bad. I just have what I like. So, Martin, I would suggest, I'm going to plug myself again, scan that QR code in the top right, and we can have a conversation about it. I think you're in the right, taking the right direction, because the speakers you're looking at are what you should be looking at for an experience of what you're after. I just want to know more and see if we can get you into something that makes sense. But good question. Ace of Base says 7,000 with the lens is 30K. Right now, yes. Epson is about to increase their price to the 7,000 is going to go to 33,000, and those prices do not include a lens. So 30K does not include a lens. It's just the projector.
10% price hike.
10% price hike. I think it's actually the LS 12,000 is going to 6,000. So it's over 10% there. It just depends on the model. But the QB 1000 is not changing price. It's staying the same. So if you need pricing, Ace, scan that QR code in the top right. Can help you out. Good question. ST Kelly, if you guys couldn't have the speakers that you have, what speakers would you choose? It's a good question. What would you do, Jonathan?
I I can be happy with. Here's what I've found in my adventure in this hobby. I can be happy with a lot of different speakers so long as they have reference capability. So, like, if I go to multiple different rooms in Kansas City group that have reference capable systems, I enjoy them all. I don't have something in mind that would be like my next preferred step or my next step up or down. I really like these CBTs. I've said it before. If I moved homes, these are coming with me. Like I really enjoy what they do.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not wanderlusting for anything else. There's no upgrade path for me in my mind. And I can be happy with things besides these as well. That's my statement. As long as they're reference capable, I can be happy with a lot of different speakers. Because if they're reference capable, you can EQ them any way you want. Like if they're a competent speaker,
I feel like there's something though that EQ can't solve.
there's certainly design traits and characteristics of the speaker that EQ won't change.
But I know what you mean. You can give a speaker a different sound characteristic.
You can, and once you get to a certain tier, like it's flavors of good to me, and I can be happy with more than one speaker.
What would I do? That's a hard one. I do love me some Martin Logan electrostatics, but I also really like the Kef right now. I guess it depends on what I was trying to accomplish. If I wasn't chasing reference, either the Martin Logan electrostatics or Kef metas of some type. If I was chasing reference, ooh, I don't know. That's hard because I haven't coming up until Ascendo. I found Ascendo. I didn't find anything that I liked, mainly because I listened to a lot of 2-channel, and I just hadn't found anything that I really, really liked that would replace the electrostatics. So I don't know. I guess the electrostatics are Kef meta at this point is the direction I would go. That removes reference from the equation, though. Well, Derek, I want to do a before and after measurement of the screen, spandex for Seymour. Can you point me in the right way? How would you do that?
So he's talking about audio measurement? Absolutely, you can.
It's either that or he's talking about gain, which you can also do.
Yeah. So if you're talking about gain, you would need a light meter of some sort. You can get an inexpensive one like a Dr. Meter for like $30 on Amazon. That would be an option to just kind of see how much you gain or lose as far as gain. And then for acoustic measurements, you would want to do a frequency response sweep with either REW or OmniMic or whatever your tool of choice, and just see how they compare. Measure one before and one after, and see how they
with the mics in the exact same position at the same SPL, using the same measurement in the exact same controlled way. Otherwise, you're allowing variables to creep in.
Oh yeah, if your mic moves even an inch, you're probably not going to have the accuracy you need.
Yeah, but yeah, you can absolutely do that, and it would be interesting to be able to see it. Pixel Pusher Andy on the forum has done a huge test with a bunch of different fabrics, both AT, the audio transparency, and the gain. I suggest you look that up. Just look up Pixel Pusher and projector screen gain, and I bet you'll find it on Google. And it's a big 30-some material test that he did, and it's pretty interesting.
Yeah.
Good question. Ace of Base. Ignorance is bliss. Since most people can't spend $30K on a projector alone, QB1000 is definitely a great projector for most people. Would you agree?
I do agree with that, and I've agreed with it pretty strongly, actually. Until you experience something like the QL7000, you don't even really realize that there's a problem with the brightness or that there's a fault with the brightness. There's not even really a problem. It's hard to describe. Like, you don't lust for something you haven't seen in the brightness department, as weird as that terminology is, until you've experienced it. And then you kind of do. So yeah, I mean, I think that's true. I agree with both sides of the statement. What do you think?
I agree with both. Yeah, I agree with both. You don't know what you don't know. And if you don't know, a lot of times not knowing is cheap. than knowing. Because once, at least in my experience, knowing, I can't not know. And that becomes everything that I compare to. And unfortunately for me, a lot of times that means, since it's my new benchmark, if it doesn't meet my benchmark, I'm not happy with it. So I have to try and figure out a way to obtain that. So I try and be very careful about what I'm seeing.
Yeah, I mean, I think if I hadn't seen brighter projectors, like the NZ500 would be plenty bright, because there's really nothing wrong with the image. When you're watching it, it's a beautiful image. But when you switch to the NZ500, even coming from the LS12000, and certainly from the QL3000 or the memory of the QL7000, it's dim. Like it seems dim. And so like that kind of sets a benchmark for what you experience, just like OLED does for TVs. If you had OLED in your house and then you go and you try to watch your old LCD TV, you're thinking like, wah wah.
Well, look at where we've been on our projector journey. Look at the projectors we've had and the displays we've had, and look at where we are now. If you look at projectors, they've virtually universally gotten brighter. TVs virtually universally have gotten brighter. And if we try and go back to something that's dimmer, let's say to a plasma, it's got better motion. It's got pretty good image, and compare it to an LED, I don't know which one we're going to think is better, because the brightness makes up for a lot of that.
Yeah.
But if you compare that to an OLED, there's no going back if you compare it to an OLED.
And some of that gets rose-colored nostalgia memory too, because
yes,
I have a 2014, I think it was, plasmas from Sharp, no, Samsung. Sorry, Samsung, and it was considered by some, like it or the Panasonic was considered like the best plasma that was ever made. I bought it from one of the guys on the forum. I had really strong, good memories of that until I got like my OLED. I recently hooked it back up again. Ben, when he was over here for the KC crawl, helped me fix it. It had a ribbon had actually come unplugged somehow, and I replaced the motherboard, the power supply, and we found a ribbon was unplugged. Got it working. Anyway, I had really fond memories of that, and I was wondering how it would hold up to OLED. Like I'm thinking, like this is probably pretty comparable. It's not
even close.
OLED crushes that plasma, crushes it. And in my memory, I was thinking that plasma.
Now, there is a lot of degradation that can happen to the plasma over time, so let's not forget that. So it may not be all rose-colored glasses. It could be that things have degraded, because the phosphors and stuff that are in the plasma, they do dim over time. But I know exactly what you mean.
So I mean, the plasma's it's a 63-inch or 64-inch, and I remember it being super bright, but it's a 1080p panel. It's not nearly as bright as this OLED. It's the 1080p panel shows its pixel grid like super well compared to 4K on a OLED. That wasn't as bright. The blacks aren't as black. Like it in no way competes with the OLED. And I thought it would be more close than it was.
Fair enough.
I don't even know where I'm going with that, except for it's just that concept of like once you see something better, it's hard to unsee it.
Jonathan's effectively saying plasma sucked. Get off your horse.
At the time, it was awesome. It's been surpassed. Same thing with audio. Once you hear something, sometimes it's hard to unhear it. I mean, we've talked about that before too. Like, but a new benchmark has been set.
Yes. I mean, look what the brightness did to you. I don't think you ever thought you'd be going down that pathway. And here we are. No. I'm watching SDR, 400 nits.
That QL7000 in my room was like a bad idea.
Yeah. I had to get you back somehow, Jonathan. It had to happen somehow.
Oh, man. Well, they made it affordable because your projector is awesome, but it's also $100,000, and that's not in my realm.
Yeah.
When you get something that's a third of the price and it's also awesome, you're thinking like, well, wait a minute. And then the QL3000 is far less than that. So yeah.
So we answered that one. All right, Kevin Orr, off a video for a minute. Speaker upgrade path from Klipsch. Thinking JTR, but not sure how the surrounds and Atmos will sound with a single compression driver. It's a compression driver and a woofer. It's a coaxial. in the JTR, like the 110.
Yeah.
So it's not just a compression driver. If you wanted that to happen, the compression driver would have to be enormous. Enormous. Like even the compression driver in the Swan would not be big enough. It's a 4-inch beryllium and it gets down to 200 or 300 hertz, and you need the woofer to be able to help you out there.
I think for his JTR question, man, the JTR thread on ABS forum is so
yes,
it's one of the most active threads on that entire
I
forum.
posted in there today.
And there's a lot of people in there that would be willing to demo their equipment. It may not be in your direct town, but I bet you anything there's someone close. So if you just Kevin, if you just posted on the ABS forum thread for JTR speakers and said, hey, I'm in the market, I'm coming from Clips, I'd like to see what JTR would sound like, I bet you anything there'd be multiple people that would be interested in kind of showcasing, because that's an upgrade path that a lot of people do. That Clips to JTR is kind of like a steady state transition that a lot of people have made.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And there's other brands there too, but I think you're going to gain a lot going that direction. It's a better experience. It's a more capable speaker.
Yeah.
Any brand like that, if you go from Klipsch to JTR, Ascendo, JBL, all of that stuff, you're getting into more pro style speakers that have the dynamics. They've got the capability. Just got to experience them because they are going to sound a little bit different. They're going to present a little bit different. You've got to find one that makes sense to you. Chris Ramsey asks, have either of you experienced a home theater with infinite baffle subwoofers? If so, what were your thoughts compared to sealed and ported?
Yeah, I have. If they're set up right, they're going to be more like a sealed system, because they basically are using one side of a wall or the outside of a house as the other side of the cabin. They don't require much power. They're easy to drive as far as power usage, and they're going to perform really well. Like, that's a good choice. A guy named Desert Dome had basically infinite baffle, where his system in his living room, there was a crawl space under his house, and his subwoofers were in the floor, and the outside of the house in the crawl space was the other side of the box, if you will, the infinite baffle. So the house was the subwoofer box. It was really fun. It sounded great.
Yeah. As long as they're implemented correctly and designed correctly, they can be great.
I always wondered how his neighbors like that, because effectively, since it's a crawl space, they're getting the same exact volume outside the house as
neighbor's house was the cabinet.
No, but I mean, there's plenty of sound going outside with that, like nothing blocking it. But it sounded good.
Can be good if implemented correctly.
And as a double bonus, that was really fun because they were mounted in the floor.
Oh, that's cool.
Suspended floor. It really made the floor move like a lot. And the couch would kind of actually migrate across the floor, bouncing as you were playing like reference level demos. A lot of fun.
So here is a question. Well, this is going back to when we were talking about gain from Derek, and he wanted to compare spandex versus the Seymour screen. So he's got 2 meters, LX1330B or the Doctor meter. The Doctor meter is the one that we see a lot with Amazon or with MadVR. Just know that these meters are not horribly accurate, but if you're only doing a comparison between the two and you're trying to figure out like which one's brighter and by how much, they'll work in that capacity. Just don't think that you're going to be able to take the reading that you're getting and compare it to something else that's online taken with a better meter.
The one you're talking about, the LX1330B, is what I have. I think it's reasonable enough for what you're wanting to do.
Yes,
$35
for sure. Yes, no question. Either of those would work fine, Derek. Revive Creative says QL7000 on a 0.8 ALR screen is absolutely nuts. Got that set up on order for a client right now. Yeah,
it is.
It is nuts.
It's a beautiful choice.
It's a crazy setup. I love the QL7000. Great projector. Brings a lot to the table for the money. It is expensive, but it does what it says it's going to do, and it does it well.
Super quiet too. Unbelievably quiet.
Unbelievably quiet.
It's a whisper.
Unbelievably quiet. Revive Creative says pro audio technology or JTR, leaning towards pro audio technology. those specs and measurements. Yeah, Pro Audio has a lot more choices. They've got huge in-wall speakers that you can put in there. So that's another option there too. But
I
they're
don't think
both,
I've ever heard Pro Audio technology speakers. Have you?
yeah.
Where it's at a show or is someone house? You know,
At some showrooms, in a house. I know the Pro Audio guys. They're out of California. They're very objectively driven company. They make some good stuff. JTR also makes good stuff. They're both good. I mean, Pro Audio's just got more choices, which I think Revibe Creative is a dealer. If he's looking for a line to get into, I think Pro Audio has more choices, but they're also going to be more expensive than JTR.
I'm going to say, without knowing anything about Pro Audio technology, never having heard them, but I really appreciate Jeff's involvement on AVS Forum,
Yeah.
and his participation in the community. He's been to a lot of different shootouts. He's volunteered to show his speakers at different places, including one of the first M Waves,
including breaking Jonathan's house.
Yeah. I mean, he's brought many times to many different places, brought over his speakers for free to show at a shootout, and hands like his demeanor at those shootouts is awesome. He hands his speakers or subwoofers over to the host. He makes no intervention. He doesn't try to control it at all. He's like, here's my stuff. I'm proud of it enough to know that I'll just let it do whatever it does. And you guys set it up however you want. I mean, I've seen this over and over again. So I'm a big fan of Jeff and JTR and what he does. He's proud of his product. It's a good product. That can be something to weigh into the equation too. I don't know anything about the Pro Audio technology guys. I haven't seen them are active on AVS Forum or contributing to the community. Maybe they do.
I don't think they do.
But that weighs into the equation for me. So something to consider.
Yep. Good question. John Durant, 175-inch diagonal scope screen using an NZ9 now. What upgrade would you do? QL7000 or NZ900?
I don't know that I'd change at that point. Would you change at that point? If he's got an NZ9 now, would you change?
On a 175-inch screen?
I
guess it depends on what he's after. Knowing what you know now with brightness, would you change?
How could we answer that without knowing what his preferences are? Because when we had a shootout between those two things on a 200 screen, there were solid lines of distinction between the preferences for people.
Yeah, but I'm not.
I preferred the QL7000.
Yes, I'm saying, what would you do?
Remove the QL7000 from the equation for just a minute.
Mm-hmm.
NZ9 to NZ900.
No.
I don't think I'd do that.
No.
I think I'd wait another generation or maybe two because you've already got a very nice projector. And I'm not. What's NZ900 bringing to the equation that you don't have now is my question to you. A little bit better tone mapping, potentially.
Maybe a little bit better ANSI.
Does it? I thought the
I don't know.
500 and 700 had that improvement, not so much the NZ900.
Well, I'm saying the 900 over the NZ9. I don't know. I'm just...
Maybe if it got rid of bright corners, that might be something. Like if you have bright corners now, that could be an equation.
But is that worth that money? I'd say no.
Yeah, I mean, for me, between those two, I'm probably staying with NZ9. Not that there's anything wrong with the NZ900. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying it might not be enough of a leap to make me open my wallet. The QL7000 is a totally different beast, but will he like it better or not? I don't know. You will like the brightness increase 3 times the brightness. The JVC NZ900 at 100% laser will not be as bright as the QL7000 at 30% laser.
No. John, here's what you need to do. If you're seriously in the market for one of these projectors, and I've had several customers do this, you need to come to Kansas City and you need to see them. Because the QL7000 is a vastly different animal than JVC. It's on the complete opposite side of the spectrum. So us saying, yes, do it, that's our subjective opinion. Because there are things that the NZ, the JVCs do that the Epson cannot do.
Yes.
Cannot do. So you have to figure out in viewing which one you prefer. And the only way to do that is to see them. So I suggest, and I'll put you up for the night, and I have a bunch of customers do this, come out and see it so that you know what you're getting. Don't buy based on somebody else's opinion, because that is a recipe for buyer's remorse, and it's not a good place to be. So if you're looking at spending this amount of money on a projector, a plane ticket should be inconsequential at this point, in my opinion, to make sure that you're getting the right thing.
And think about, that's a fantastic offer, Ryan. And I know you've done this with several customers, and I know it's been a good experience for you. John, you get a chance to see, if you haven't already been to M-Wave or the Kansas City Crawls or something, you get a chance to see his Mad VR Experience Center, which is just fantastic. Get a little demo. You get to see
it doesn't suck.
The QL7000 in person. He's saying he'll put you up for the night. Like, yeah, that's kind of a no-brainer. If you're
we'll go get Jack Stack, take you out to dinner. I think regardless of what you do, regardless of if you buy something, I don't care. You've just got to see them in order to make sure that if you see the QL and you think, I don't need that, I'm happy with the NZ9, you know at that point that you're not missing anything. If it were me in that position, I cannot exist in a position of not knowing. It drives me crazy. So that's my suggestion. That's what I would do. Anyway.
Sorry. Yeah, I agree. It's a great offer.
Well, you do the same thing. You do the same thing.
Sure. I think Stitch says it's very polarizing in the comments. I agree 100%.
It is, yes.
Stitch is one who would say, I would take the NZ900. I know him well enough, and we've had this conversation. He would choose that. I would choose the QL7000. So there's no wrong or right. It's what your preference is and what kind of content you watch and how it looks to your eyes.
But Stitch knows now because he's seen them both on the same screen.
Yep.
So he knows which side of the coin he's on. I know which side of the coin I'm on.
Yep.
And we've just got to get you to the point that you know which side he's on. Drew is one of the guys that's come, and whether or not he thinks it was a good idea, I don't know. But it helped him. Yes, it helped him figure out what he wanted. He was on the fence about a bunch of different things, and it allowed him to be like, this is exactly what I need. And he knew when he was leaving, he was all up in the air on what he needed to do and what he wanted to do. Do I go with this company? Do I do this? Do I do that? And by the time he left, he's like, this is exactly what I'm doing. I know exactly what I want. So it's worth it. Okay. Oh, he brought a follow-up. So John says, I was planning to upgrade after the next M-Wave so I can see it in person, not in a dire rush, but next year or so for sure. Okay. Fair enough. As long as you've got a plan, I want to make sure that Drew
says it's not just a plane ticket. It ends up being more.
Well, he
doesn't have to be.
Ryan
is not high pressure.
No,
it's not. So you're
going to make your own decision.
Like, don't think you're going to go in there and he's going to corner you in the back room with a whip and say you will buy.
Jonathan, that's just you.
Not even remotely what he'll do. He'll be just present it.
I talk a lot of people out of things because I want what I would want somebody to do to me. That sounded weird if we just talked about whipping. Okay. I want to be the salesman that I would want to talk to me. I want to know that they have my best interests. So anyway, You get it. I won't beat that into the ground. So we've talked about Infinite Baffle. We've talked about, Kenny says, my projector's got AI cinema and it's getting praise and reviews. I don't know what to think yet. What does that even mean?
He's probably got, is that the Valerian Pro?
I'm not saying what does his comment mean. I mean, what does AI based viewing modes mean? Is that like a dynamic tone mapping?
Our OLEDs have something to that name. Like,
what does it do?
It's like probably an HDR tone mapping function of some sort that they've triggered with the AI word, would be my guess.
Marketing? I don't know. Maybe it's not. Maybe it is. Maybe it's AI.
Which projector do you have? Which one are we talking about, if you're still here?
I don't know. I hate the AI stuff in marketing because it's used so broadly. Like, is it actually AI? Is it just some type of algorithm that's running? I feel like marketing guys have used AI just as, it's got a computer with it. It's AI. It's got a microchip. It's AI. Yeah, sure.
Is intelligence being applied is your actual question. Yeah.
Big Street Cinema. Have you ever installed or sold something like the Isotech V5 Electra Aquarius? That is a name for a pre-amplifier 4K player and projector and get any good out of it. I have no idea what that is. Isotech V5 Electra Aquarius. I'm assuming it means Electra or Aquarius.
No, I mean it's on Crutchfield. It's
What
a
is
power
it?
line conditioner for
Oh,
$3,000.
you have a power line conditioner. Not like
No,
that.
it's not power line. It's a Panamax.
No, but you have a conditioner.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
I appreciate it. And I think
In certain situations, they can be beneficial.
they're very practical, especially when you get into the realm of cost that we have in our theaters. Now, yours is a whole house conditioner that you have, right, or a surge protector type thing with your system.
Me?
Yeah.
No, I don't have one.
Oh, I thought you had a whole house system.
No.
That's the inevitable comment that will come through is just get a whole house conditioner. Yeah, I mean that's not a bad choice. The Panamax one that I have is the PM 5400, and the reason I like it is because on multiple equations, I know it has saved my gear. I used to have a Monster Power HTS, like their second to top one, and I was watching a show during a lightning strike, and I in my neighborhood, and I happened to be watching the Monster Power thing. Just happened to have glanced over there, and I saw it flash. Like I'd have to go back to the forum. I made a post on it. I can't remember. It's been 15 years ago, 10 years ago. I saw it flash somewhere like 370 volts because it has a line voltage thing, and it clamped down and shut off and blew up. Like it was done. It never worked again. And that meant that 370 volts from that lightning strike, probably more before it clamped down, had come in and it had sacrificed itself to protect my gear. So and nothing broke. Like none of my equipment broke. That I was watching stuff. There was all kinds of things that could have broke that protect my gear. And another time with the Panamax, this 5400 that I have in now, I had an alarm going off on it. It kept making noise, and I came down and looked at it, and the voltage on my line was switching between like 85 volts and 140 volts. It was like swinging back and forth like crazy, just like going way out of spec. So I called the power company, and they actually had a power problem. I did have an amp that wasn't hooked it up to that Panamax fail. It was just connected to the wall, and none of my gear on the Panamax failed. So like I I think they're worth having just for random things that can happen, and it protects your gear. If it sacrifices itself for your gear, then you save money at the end of the day.
Yeah. Whole home surge protector is coming for my house. The power over here is really good. I don't have any issues. I just put in Shelly relays, which I will put more of in, that I can turn the entire system off and disconnect it because it's disconnecting it from the main power feed. Which, if I get hit by lightning, it's going to jump that regardless. Like it's not stopping that. But there's whole home surges in the near future for me. I think, no question. My system's drawing too much power, and I've yet to find a conditioner that's not like hospital grade, that's the size of a rack, that's going to be able to do that. So whole home surge is, I think, the direction I'm going. But Jonathan brings up a good point. Used as a tool to fix a problem, they are great. Used in a case where you think it's going to do magic, not great. And there's a lot of selling cases for that, and it's all subjective and placebo.
I agree. I don't think it's going to refine your treble, and I don't think it's going to enhance your bass. I do think and do know it can resolve flicker on a projector image because I've experienced that firsthand and tested it multiple times and validated that it's true. So if you have something that like you have dirty power and your projector image is flickering, those kind of things can solve that as long as it's like if it's a voltage regulator, it's like putting out a pure sine wave like the 5400 does and my home theater one did before from Monster Power. That'll fix issues. I never thought and never portrayed that it increased the sound quality or anything.
No.
Maybe if it was dirty enough power, maybe, but it wasn't, even though
they will fix problems, but they are not magic.
Yeah.
John Durant, $9.99 USD. Thank you very much, my friend.
Thank you, John.
Appreciated. Never expected. Derek Harrell on the AV20 question. Don't Denon and Marantz have a hidden HDMI test tool in the tech menus? I have no idea.
They do.
They do.
They do, but I've tried it and I don't think it works, or I don't know what I'm doing. Every time it says my cable failed and my cables work. Like I was playing it just to play with it, to learn it.
Mm-hmm.
I got out all my HDMI cables. I must have tried 20 cables. And it would always say that every cable failed. That's either mine doesn't work or I had it hooked up wrong. I don't know.
They're in bed with Monster Cable. Cables failed. Is it $500? No, it failed. $600? No, failed.
What's more, I got on the forums and I asked around if other people had the same experience. I know the people had. Basically, what it was saying they failed every time. And these are cables that work. Like I don't know what to say.
There are situations where a cable can fail, like fail a test and still work. Like if it's not needing that particular thing, or you're using it in capacity for HDMI 2.1, 2.0 and not 2.1. There's times when that can happen, but I'm
fully willing to admit that it's user error on my side. Maybe I didn't have it hooked up like the way I was supposed to, although I think I did. I mean, I tried to research into it. But then the fact that other people were saying theirs, I was also saying that maybe it's glitchy, maybe it needs a firmware check, maybe my particular unit doesn't work with it, whatever. I don't know. But that was my experience. And not just mine. Others had the same report.
Cyclonics. How important is light control with an emissive display? I think it's less important, but still important, depending on the experience. Mastering studios actually use a bias light behind them in a lot of situations.
I think it's only really meaningful if you have like something that's a glaring light source, like a sun or something. Like my room lights I don't see them on the screen at all, on this OLED screen.
Yeah. I don't either. It's more of an atmosphere thing at that point. Like what kind of atmosphere are you trying to do, and what is it doing to your subjective perception on things? And it's probably impacting things like your brightness and stuff like that. But on an emissive display,
it's far less important than
yes,
like a projector type setup.
Yes. Yep. Oops, sorry. Anybody know of any companies like DIYSG looking to DIY with pro drivers, but DIYSG seems like the only option and they are always out of stock. Even if it were just proven plans, that would be fine.
If you're looking for subwoofers, GSG Audio. If you're looking for speakers, there is another one. I'll have to think of it. Look up GSG Audio, web search that, and see if they're more focused on the subwoofers right now. There's two groups. Do it yourself SG is one. What's the other one? I know it. I can't remember right now. I think it was run by a guy named Eric, if I remember correctly. Do it yourself sound group is one. I don't know. If I think of it, I'll mention it. You can move on. I can't think of it right now.
I only got one more question, so.
I'm web searching it to remember the other name.
Brian Cobb says he saw Gene from Audioholics install the Surge Pure Mach 3 to clean up his electricity. Well, while you're looking at that, John Durant asks, trigger question, JBL SDP58, can I use both triggers simultaneously to power on multiple amps? Usually, most AVRs and pre's allow you to use multiple trigger outs, and if they're uncontrolled, they should trigger everything on at the same time. Things like Storm and Trinov allow you to control them. I don't know about the JBL, but you should be able to use both ports. If not, there is a device from Emotiva that allows you to trigger multiple devices off of one 12-volt trigger port, and you can trigger, I think, up to 4 independently. And Yeah, and it gives you more control over more devices. Zach says GR Research.
That's not what's coming to my mind, but that might be another one.
I don't know. I don't know on that one. Not sure. Did you find it?
No, but I'm still trying to find it. There here. This might be it. I kind of feel like that guy's name was Eric, Erik, that
He
had
says
that
that
second
he said
site.
that was DIY SG.
Is it?
Well, that's what Randy Home Theater Dreaming says.
When I do a search for do-it-yourself sound group with Eric, it's not coming up. But
ERICH is what he and Randy says.
okay.
Dayton Audio.
No, not thinking of that. Okay, I think you're right actually, because when I spelled it correctly, ERICH at Do It Yourself Sound Group. That's the guy. So that must be the only one I'm thinking of as well.
Anthony asks, what about Hus boxes? If I use AC Infinity and pull air out of the box and into the attic, will that be sufficient if I plan on leaving the intake side of a projector open with permeable material? You're still going to hear it. Hush boxes they use turns in order to slow down airflow and to push the fans further away so that and then you could put sound absorption on the outsides or the insides of the pathway for the air to absorb the sound. So it's typically not as easy as just putting one side on exiting somewhere else. It could lessen it, but you're not going to solve your problem. Hush boxes are usually a bit more complex than that because they're lengthening pathways for airflow, putting absorption in there, slowing down the airflow, and using that in order to lessen or allow you to decrease your noise floor in your room. But what you're saying would work. You still looking?
I found another one called MTG Designs. MTG Designs, mtg-designs.com.
He's a man on a mission.
And I asked my text group of long-term hosts if they could remember, see if anyone comes back in the next few minutes.
CSS? Parts Express?
CSS. Doing the check on that one. Creative Sound Solutions. That website doesn't look familiar to me at all, but it looks like another option. ABS Forum has an incredible do-it-yourself section, and you could probably peruse that thread for the do-it-yourself.
Mm-hmm. I mean, that's where I would go.
Answer and not watch us stumble over it for.
I like watching you stumble.
Yeah.
But we're out of questions. We've reached the end. It's been 2 hours, so it's a good place to call it quits. Good stream, though. Lots of good questions.
Yeah, great questions tonight.
I enjoyed that one. That was fun. So we will do this again next weekend. I will be here. Will you be here?
Yeah. Okay. So we're watching 28 Days Later. That's the movie.
28 Days Later, and we can watch Jonathan complain that he had to turn it down the entire time.
I probably will. I might even tell you I had to turn it off. We'll see how that goes.
I'll watch it. I'll watch it for everybody.
Here, I put the link for the ABS forum thread for the do-it-yourself speakers and subs, and I bet they'll have the answer in there if you just poke around on the first few pages.
Okay. Well, we'll wrap that up or close this up 28 days later for the next one. If you guys need anything, feel free to reach out. Here's the contact code for myself. If you have any questions about anything, need pricing on anything, feel free to shoot that. There is a sales section on there with things that are ready to ship. We've got a couple NZ500s, an NZ700, and an Epson LS12000 that are ready to go. So if anybody is in need of a projector, those can go next day or are available anytime. Anything else is going to take a bit more time, but we've got access to a bunch. So if you need anything, feel free to scan that and we'll get you taken care of. But Jonathan, this is fun as always. Hopefully we can get together in the next couple weeks and watch Jurassic Park. I haven't watched that in a while. I have a feeling your QL is going to make it look a little fake. The brightness is going to allow us to see some stuff.
I loved it. Loved it.
We'll see.
We'll see. That'll be curious.
We'll see which one I like more, the NZ500 or the QL. It's probably going to be the QL. But anyway, anything close out?
Nothing from me.
Okay. Thanks. Well, guys, stay safe out there. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. It is very hot in Kansas City, so stay cool. Stay safe, and we'll catch you guys next time. See you next weekend. See you later.